Introducing a completely redesigned experience that you can sense. And that senses you. The new Dell Latitude laptops bring your work closer to you.
This is 9 News with Jane Goldsmith.
Good evening. As a search for a missing mother in Victoria grows more desperate, her family have today made an emotional appeal for help to bring her home. Samantha Murphy's eldest daughter described how strong her mother is. And 5 days on from the disappearance, police say they still haven't found any suspicious circumstances. Mia Tyquin has the details.
Fighting back tears, Samantha's daughter Jess fronted the cameras today, pleading for the public's help to find her missing mum. By her side was Sam's husband Mick, who thanked the community for their generosity. It's the first time the family has spoken publicly and they're desperate for answers.
Mum's a really strong woman and she's far too determined to give up this fight. I know she's out there somewhere, so if you could please continue to search for her, to give us something to work with, we'd really appreciate it.
People just don't vanish into thin air. Someone's got to know something, you know, whether it be any little thing that you might think's relevant, just call the police, let them know.
The 51-year-old has been missing now for 5 days. She was last seen leaving her Ballarat East home on Sunday morning to go for a run. The search site today widened to include a new section of the Wulwukarung Regional Park. Officers seizing several items in the scrub. But while police say Sam's disappearance is out of character, there's nothing to suggest she met with foul play.
We're going to continue the search and considering all possibilities, and we're being extremely thorough and methodical with that investigation.
Police initially believed this CCTV footage captured Samantha running about 1 kilometre from her home on Sunday morning, but it's since been revealed it was in fact another jogger. SES crews suspended the search at 8:30 tonight. They're planning to be back out again tomorrow. Sam's distraught family faces another anxious night, but they're not giving up hope.
Can't wait to see you and to give you the biggest hug when I do and to tell you off for giving us so much stress. I love you. Police are again asking residents to check their CCTV cameras and dash cam to see if they've picked up any vision of Samantha. Anyone with any information that could help the investigation is being urged to contact Crime Stoppers.
History was made in Canberra today as Papua New Guinea's Prime Minister became the first Pacific Island leader to address Parliament. As security tensions ramp up across our region, James Marape pledged nothing would come between our nations. And there was also a plea to bring the NRL to PNG.
A show of defensive might for a people that once defended our shores. Papua New Guinea's Prime Minister James Marape and a grand welcome. This walk reserved for the world's most powerful. Today, trod by the leader of our nearest neighbour.
Mr Speaker, the Prime Minister of Papua New Guinea.
Addressing a joint sitting of Parliament, the first leader of a Pacific nation to do so.
It will be a decisive decade for us, and it can be a decisive decade because of us.
With recent unrest at home, Mr Marape thanked Australia, promising a generation of cooperation.
Do not give up on Papua New Guinea. We have always bounced back from our low moments.
As the Prime Minister spoke, 2 floors above, a Chinese dragon welcomed in the new year, a reminder of the power struggle between Beijing and the West playing out in the Pacific and in PNG.
In a world of many relations with many nations, nothing will come in between our two countries.
Tonight, while China has money, Australia is relying on rugby league. The Prime Minister presented with the Queensland jersey and more funding for development. This hard game, the ultimate soft diplomacy.
I hope the day will come when the people of Papua New Guinea can cheer for a team of their own in the National Rugby League.
Yeah. From strength comes security, and from security comes stability, and from stability comes prosperity.
The sentiments and significance of the speech will please Australia and our allies, but words must be backed
by actions.
I know we live in a different era and we're not going back to where we were.
The grip on our region a little tighter tonight. Charles Croucher, 9 News.
And while there was no mention of China in Parliament today, tonight Prime Minister James Marape opened up on the relationship at a Q&A at the Australian National University, as Claudia Verdoljak reports.
Earlier in Parliament today, Mr Marape was clear about his close ties with Australia, not only referring to our nation, his nearest neighbour, as a friend, but as family. But tonight he wasn't cutting ties with China either. Taking part in a Q&A at the Australian National University earlier this evening, he was questioned by former Foreign Affairs Minister Julie Bishop about the challenge of managing the power competition between the US and China.
PNG knows our place in the Pacific and the world very well. We will not compromise our relations with China just as much as we will not compromise our relations with USA. We don't play nations against each other. We tell them what we're all about and we relate to them. And for PNG, word is a bond.
Mr Marape went on to say it's an export market he can't compromise as the nation tries to gain economic independence.
Tonight we can show you for the first time what this year's Olympic Games medals will look like as we gear up for Paris 2024. The bronze, silver and gold medals will each have a piece of original iron from the Eiffel Tower placed at the heart in a symbol of French culture.
En 2024, le rêve est un bijou et Paris en est l'écrin. Paris 2024 est élevé.
The Olympic Games begin on the 26th of July. New South Wales is suffering through a surge of school-aged children presenting to emergency departments with pneumonia. Live to Massilia Eiley with the details now. Massilia, what's behind it?
Jane, well, new data from New South Wales Health says it's most likely various respiratory diseases spreading amongst children that's causing this surge. The figures show that admissions jumped among children aged 5 to 16 in December, with 56 admitted to emergency at the start of the month. By the end, that doubled to 112. What is important to note, though, was not every single one of those cases that was admitted was severe. Now, as we mentioned, those cases really peaked in December, and experts say it's likely due to an increase in travellers bringing in those respiratory diseases over the holiday period. The good news, though, the data shows the number of presentations have dipped this month. Jane?
Massilia, thank you. The fate of 15,000 sheep and cattle aboard a livestock ship off the West Australian coast has finally been resolved this evening. The Federal Department of Agriculture has announced the animals will be unloaded into Fremantle. This could happen as early as tomorrow morning. The ship left for the Middle East on the 5th of January but was turned around due to rebel activity in the Red Sea, leaving the vessel and its live cargo in limbo. A woman's body has been taken from a home in Adelaide's northeast. Forensic investigators have spent the night combing the scene for clues on how she died. Straight to reporter Michaela Kamarick in Adelaide. Michaela, there's been a heavy police presence there.
Yes, Jane, still very much an unfolding situation in Redwood Park tonight, where major crime detectives have spent much of the afternoon examining a property. Paramedics were called to the house on Somerset Avenue at around 7 this morning. They found a woman unconscious, and despite their best efforts, the 26-year-old died at the scene. Now, a body was removed from the property late this afternoon, and a window could also be seen smashed at the front of the house. And police have been door knocking, speaking to residents, and many have been left shocked by what's happened today.
Oh my God, there's a lady that's died there. I went, oh my God, that must be the neighbour over the back, because I can see all this taped off.
It's quite sad that this has happened. Wouldn't have expected it to be something that happens on this street. It's normally pretty quiet.
Police will now prepare a report for the coroner, and they're also urging anyone with information to come forward. Jane?
OK, Michaela, thank you. A planned multi-billion-dollar redevelopment of the Gabba in Queensland is tonight in jeopardy after Olympics bosses withdrew support for the plan. Abby Guerin has the details from Brisbane. Abby, the rebuild is all but dead in the water.
Well, Jane, less than 3 months ago, we were told that the multi-billion-dollar Gabba rebuild would be going ahead, but now it seems it's back to the drawing board. One of the world's top Olympics officials, John Coates, has told News Corp today that the Games are on the nose here in Brisbane because of all the political squabbling over this proposed redevelopment. The project is currently subject to a 60-day review launched by the Queensland Government, but many are suggesting the original plan of using smaller existing venues to host the event could be the way forward. Brisbane's Mayor seems to think that this is the final nail in the coffin for the Gabba.
I think the Gabba rebuild is dead, buried and cremated.
I don't think the Olympics and Paralympics of 2032 are on the nose. I think people are excited about it.
The Queensland Government is unlikely to announce a final decision on the Gabba's future until that 60-day review is complete, but there is a long road ahead to upgrade existing venues and transport infrastructure. Even if the project is shelved, Jane, pressure is really building on the state government here to get things moving and fast.
OK, Abby Gearan there in Brisbane, thank you for the update. You're watching Nine's Late News, seen right across Australia, still to come. Heavens above, sewage wastewater dropped on properties by firefighting aircraft in Perth. Prince William back on duty and meeting Hollywood royalty. And backstage with pop superstar Pink ahead of her Aussie tour. A hazmat warning is in place for parts of a Perth suburb after water from a sewage pond was used to fight a fire. Let's go live to Rachel Clifford for the details now. Rachel, what are residents being told?
Well, Jane, the Department of Health are advising the risk of illness is low, but residents are still on alert. There were concerns earlier today when a hazmat warning was issued for parts of a Perth suburb. It was after water from a sewage pond was used to fight a fire that burned dangerously close to homes. Authorities say it was only dropped on bushland, but there are fears it could have blown onto nearby houses due to wind. Residents in the area are being told not to eat from their gardens for the next 48 hours and empty any water tanks.
Our priority is to keep people safe, to get the fires out, and in emergency situations sometimes it doesn't always go to plan.
Look, it's not ideal, but the kids are safe, the houses are safe.
The hazmat alert level has been downgraded this evening, and Jane, an investigation into how it happened is now underway.
Rachel Clifford, they're live in Perth. Thank you. Outback Wrangler star Matt Wright is facing yet another court case following the chopper crash that killed his friend and co-star Chris Willow Wilson in the Northern Territory 2 years ago. While the exact cause of the crash has not yet been found, the Netflix star has been hit with fresh charges from the Northern Territory's workplace safety watchdog, alleging he interfered with the Hobbs meters, which records the time an aircraft is in use. If found guilty, Mr Wright is facing up to 5 years in jail and a $1.2 million fine. A family in Sydney's southwest has had a narrow escape after an alleged stolen BMW ploughed into their backyard while they were sleeping. Two 14-year-old boys, one the accused driver, the other his passenger, allegedly fled the scene but were quickly hunted down by police. A Port Stephens mother was looking for nappies in her toddler's nursery. Instead, she found a red-bellied black snake hiding under the cot. She quickly closed the door to trap it inside and called a snake catcher. It's believed the metre-long reptile had entered through a gap in the front door.
They are so lucky because they are highly venomous snakes, especially if a bit of child. She's sort of lucky that she did see it when she did, because things could have turned out a lot different.
The snake was released back into the wild. Prince William has returned to work 3 weeks after wife Kate's major surgery and just days after his father's cancer diagnosis. The future king meeting actor Tom Cruise at a charity gala, but there was no reunion with estranged brother Harry.
First day back at work with family front of mind.
We really appreciate everyone's kind messages, thank you.
Prince William arriving at a gala for London's air ambulance charity, and his return to duty had a boost of star power. Tom Cruise, a surprise guest at the event. The Mission Impossible star, a keen helicopter pilot. The future king, a former air ambulance pilot himself, met with medical crews before addressing the medical battles in his own family. King Charles is off public duty after being diagnosed with cancer, and wife Kate is still recovering from abdominal surgery.
I'd like to take this opportunity to say thank you also
for the kind messages of support for Catherine and for my father, especially in recent days. It means a great deal to us all. It's fair to say the past few weeks have had a rather medical focus, so I thought I'd come to an air ambulance function to get away from it all.
The Prince finding humour in what's been a trying time.
And Tom, if you wouldn't mind not borrowing either of the new helicopters for the next Mission Impossible, it would be appreciated. We've all seen on our screens that, how can I put it, you seem to have a different take on normal wear and tear to the rest of us.
This signals a new era for Prince William as a working royal. As next in line to the throne, many of the King's tasks and responsibilities will fall to him, and he'll have to balance it all while supporting his father and the Princess of Wales. Earlier in the day, the Prince handed out honours at Windsor, while his brother Harry made a hasty exit from the country. The Duke of Sussex flew back to California just 24 hours after landing in London, where he saw his father for half an hour and stayed the night at a hotel.
I think that the King is tired. He's gone back to Sandringham to rest and recuperate. We expect him back to London weekly to have these appointments. Whether Harry and him can even sort of repair their relationship. He didn't see Prince William. That speaks volumes.
The King will still do official paperwork from Sandringham. He held his weekly audience with Prime Minister Rishi Sunak over the phone, taking some time to rest, but with plenty of support on hand. In London, Edward Godfrey, 9 News.
She's pop royalty and a global superstar, and Pink is getting the party started in Sydney as she kicks off her first Australian tour in almost 6 years. The singer speaking to A Current Affair earlier this evening before she takes to the stage tomorrow in front of a sold-out crowd at Allianz Stadium.
He doesn't like to go anywhere usually, but Australia is easy for him because he loves it here. So we could easily be here forever. Australia's always been the best audience in the entire world for me, and so I'm ready for the party to start.
Pink has spent the last few days enjoying all the sights of Sydney, posting photos bike riding near the Sydney Opera House and visiting Bondi Beach. After the break, all the day's finance news with Scott Phillips. Is it the end of the road for another Aussie icon? It's time to take a look back at the day in finance now with our regular money man, Scott Phillips, Chief Investment Officer at the Motley Fool. Good evening, Scott. Let's look at the market first. Australian shares rose today.
Jane, good evening. They certainly did, just a touch under 1/3%. Information technology leading the charge, up more than 1%, followed closely by banks and utilities. A very good day if you had those shares. Unfortunately, energy falling yet again.
OK, now AGL has recorded a bumper half-year profit. So no doubt plenty of customers out there would like to know, could this lead to some power bill relief?
You'd like to hope so, wouldn't you? Particularly a four-fold increase in profit for AGL. Now, to some degree, last year's profit was subdued, so the growth isn't exactly what it looks like. But you're right, we're all paying a pretty penny more for our electricity around the country. AGL actually hinting today that possibly we might see some bill relief as the wholesale price continues to come down. They didn't make any promises, but we can certainly cross our fingers.
Yeah, keep the fingers crossed for sure. Now, the future of Bow Repairs is looking uncertain tonight. What sort of impact could a closure of that sort of massive tyre chain actually have?
Yeah, this one's really tough, isn't it? Look, obviously individual communities have different tyre centres, but across the country, 100 stores, 700 staff apparently are under threat here. They haven't decided fully what they're going to do with the chain. They had tried to sell it to Bob Jane. That sale did not go ahead. So 100 stores and 700 staff, unfortunately, are facing a reasonably bleak future.
They're big numbers there. Now, speaking of job losses, this doesn't sound good at all. Corporate Australia expecting to cut more jobs at the end of the year.
And this is kind of, I think, the hangover from Christmas. We know going into the Christmas period, we know December retail sales, for example, were down 2.7%. I think a lot of retailers, a lot of businesses in general, were hoping that a bumper Christmas season might get them through. We've seen Godfrey's, of course, go to the wall. Bow Repairs, as we just said, possibly being shut down. Corporate Australia, as you say, directors at a recent AFR summit basically saying there's been a hiring freeze. They now expect job cuts through this year, and as you say, leading up to the end of the year, as companies work out how many staff they really do need, and they focus on costs because those sales growth is simply not coming through. It's not unexpected. The Reserve Bank has been forecasting for a while that unemployment would tick up. Unfortunately, this is not very good news, and we hate to see the specifics of what Corporate Australia is planning to do.
Absolutely. And Scott, before we let you go, how's Wall Street looking?
It's been one of those weeks, Jane. Again, it is very, very flat. At the moment, the futures are down 1.5 points, which pretty much is a rounding error. So we'll call that dead flat. As yesterday, we're going to have to wait and see what happens overnight. OK,
Scott Phillips from the Motley Fool, thank you for joining us again on Late News.
My pleasure. Thanks, Jane.
Stay with us. Your national weather forecast is next.
Switch on a Daikin Alira X split system with advanced streamer technology to remove more than 99% of harmful indoor air pollutants and surround yourself with cleaner air this summer. Daikin, perfecting the air.
Taking a look at the national weather forecast now. Tomorrow, troughs will generate showers and storms over the northern tropics and western Queensland, whilst drawing in heat to the west coast with severe heatwave conditions for WA. Onshore winds bringing increased moisture with showers over parts of Victoria, the New South Wales and Queensland coast, as well as Tasmania. Checking tomorrow's temperatures as we round out the working week. 29 degrees and a possible shower for Brisbane, mostly sunny, and 27 degrees for Sydney. 22 and mostly cloudy for Melbourne. Sunny and warm for Adelaide, baking heat in Perth with 41 degrees, and possible thunderstorm for Darwin with 31 degrees. And looking to Saturday, 5 to 10 millimetres and a clearing shower for Brisbane, a possible shower and 26 degrees for Sydney, mostly sunny and 27 for Melbourne, 31 degrees and fine for Adelaide, Hobart heading for a top of 20. Meanwhile, oppressive heat for Perth hitting 41 degrees again on Saturday. And that is Nine's Late News for this Thursday. Our next news is at 5 a.m, followed by The Today Show. I'm Jane Goldsmith. Thanks for your company. Good night.